OMG, baby, tell him.
Hey there, welcome to another episode of Powered by Backers. It is me, Justin Fox. I am joined here by Ken Andrukow. Ken, thank you very much for joining me here on the show today.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat.
Awesome. So you're outdoors. That's cool. You're in Calgary. It's not snowing there. I've heard it already snowed, right?
It did, yeah.
We'll throw Calgary under the bus a little bit. You guys got snow about a week ago, so
True.
yeah. But it's obviously nice out there today. I mean, it's kind of chilly here in Toronto as well. So we're getting fall weather everywhere, I assume.
Yeah, this time of year in Canada, man, it's you never know.
Yeah, exactly. I was on with somebody earlier, I guess last week, in Calgary, and I read an article, or not an article, I guess a quote or something like, "Will it rain or will it snow? It's Calgary, so you never know." Something like that. So,
nice.
So yeah.
I remember years ago, it was 22 degrees Celsius. We walked into a restaurant for dinner. We were in there for about 4 hours, and we walked out, and there was 3 inches of snow on the ground.
Yeah, crazy, right? So it can turn in a matter of literally minutes. So I'll do a quick intro here. So you're a seasoned entrepreneur. You've built multi-million-dollar businesses across multiple sectors. You've got an uncanny knack at spotting industry pivots before they happen and bringing new businesses to market successfully. But money isn't the only driving force. You founded several, as I said, across graphic arts, motion, picture, on location services, viniculture, is it consolidation, ethnic food importation consolidation, and health and wellness for the masses. You said you live in the mountains of British Columbia, but you're in Calgary right now. I think there was a lot there. Let's talk about it. Again, welcome to the show. So why don't we start off with, give us your, where did it all start? What's the beginning for Ken? How did you get into sort of the life of an entrepreneur?
Yeah, you can tell by the color of my hair, I'm a little bit on the older side. So, going back to my very first job, I worked for my dad.
Okay.
And it was like 1980. So
Okay.
and he was in the computer field and office equipment supply space. And I realized really quickly, Justin, that I was as an employee, because I was always looking for ways to do things differently, and
Okay.
It was never the way that I was asked to do things.
Okay.
And even though I got the desired result of
Right.
what I was asked to do, I was always looking for bigger, faster, cheaper, easier.
Right.
Which you would think would be a really great employee, but it's not really.
Depends on who's the leadership, right? If they're open to change and open to suggestion, maybe so, but
Yeah.
I would assume back in the 80s that wasn't the case.
No.
People wanted status quo, right?
Yeah, they wanted it to work the way it works, because it just really upset the apple cart with all the way other employees were doing things.
Right.
And so it was clear to me really early on that I wasn't meant to be an employee. It's the only job I ever had. And I went on to start creating my own companies and destiny from that point on. And that's,
Right.
that felt much more natural to me. This visionary industry pivot type mentality is really what my unique ability is really centered around.
Right.
And I've started and sold off a number of businesses over the years. I was involved in private equity for a long time, and now my career has really grown into helping other entrepreneurs understand how to use their unique ability and understand how they think is really how they created their business
Right.
initially, and when they start to fall short of where they wanted to go, it's usually because they started to not so much focus on how they think, and build their business. They focused on how the market was, and that's how they built their business.
Right.
So it's usually this, this delta between what they know and what they want, and they don't know how to get from what they know to what they want.
Right. So there's sort of a disconnect there between the two.
Yeah, one of my coaches taught me this concept of gap and gain. So, focus on what you already know, not the gap between what you know and where you're going.
Okay.
Focus on what's important today and keep moving.
And sort of make little gains. I'm gonna maybe read into the thought process. So like little gains over time, which will eventually get, sort of overcome that gap potentially. Is that thought process there, or?
Yeah. So, every 90 days or so, look back and what you've gained.
Right.
Don't look at the gap that's still in front of you. So you could imagine climbing Mount Everest.
Right.
On day one, are you ever going to get there?
Right. It's like the long road, the long journey ahead.
Right. So if you keep looking at the peak of Everest, you're like, shit, I don't know if I'm going to get there.
Right.
But if you look back at what you accomplished that day, you can see what the facts are indisputable. This is where you started. This is where you are. What did you learn?
Yeah. So you take it sort of one step at a time.
That's right.
Yeah. No, that's good advice. Like people talk about patience and sort of like, I hear a lot of people, we work with a lot of entrepreneurs as well, going through the backers kind of platform to get to sort of a funding campaign, what we call initial backers offering. But yeah, there's always those like little steps, or like always be kind of moving forward, right? Rather than, staying stagnant, right? And then you set the end goal, right? But you want to have like little tasks, almost throughout the day or throughout the week or the month that get you there, right?
Yeah, but and again, remember, don't forget to look at what you've already gained.
Right. So looking back and sort of, I don't know, reminiscing, but appreciating maybe the accomplishment or
sitting in the lesson, right?
What's that? Sorry?
Sitting in the lesson of what you've already learned.
Right. Interesting.
There's only one thing that is for certain.
Right.
You had this experience. This is what's happened. Now you're there.
Right.
But if you're looking at the gap in front of you to where you set your goal, that could change tomorrow.
Right.
And you never know what happen tomorrow. So you have to sit with what you've learned already. And another good way to sort of look at the journey of an entrepreneur is, when an airplane leaves New York City on its way to Los Angeles, how much of the time of that flight time are they actually on flight path? What do you think it is?
You mean like the ascent and descent kind of thing, or the up in the air part?
The entire trip. How much time in that, whatever that is, 6-hour flight?
6 or 8 6 hours. Yeah, I'll be honest, I've never flown to LA. I would float like to Vancouver would be 6 hours. So I'd assume LA is 7 hours.
Right, both the same. So of that 7 hours, how much time are they actually on their flight path?
7 of it? 6 of it?
They're about 9% of the entire time they're actually on flight path.
So the rest of it, they're wavering back and forth, up and down?
Constantly editing.
Okay, I see what you mean. I thought you meant like ascent. Okay, so they're constantly adjusting in their okay. Interesting.
So it's similar in the life of an entrepreneur. You have an idea, you start off, and then you get kicked in the face, and you're like, oh, I got to move over to this, and then but you're always coming back to what the vision,
the end goal is, right? Yeah. So one of the things that's funny that you mentioned that. So we just sort of did a sort of exercise in figuring out our vision, our mission, and values. Our vision is that entrepreneurs will change the world for the better, and our mission's to support entrepreneurs in that pursuit. And our values were passion, positivity, and perseverance. And the reason I bring all that up is we chose perseverance over persistence is because persistence was more of a static, on the flight path, where there's no wavering. You're persistent in that. Whereas perseverance, they both have the same end goal of, getting to that goal. Whereas perseverance, I think, and especially in the definition, you sort of read through it all, it leads to the ability, like you said, to kind of adjust for, new information, or so, like you said, someone kicks you in the teeth, or not literally, but figuratively, you get sort of, stopped a little. Now you can kind of adjust and make those adjustments with that same, kind of flight path, if you will, in mind, right? Or that same end goal, right? So
yeah, I think it's persistence and resilience, right?
right. Right.
Because you are going to there are going to be times where you want to quit.
Right. Oh yeah.
And I always say that if you're going to fail fast.
Right.
Right. And with resilience and perseverance, if you truly believe you're going in the right direction, fail fast on a daily basis,
right?
But try a lot of things to get there. And
right.
that's just the resiliency of getting up every day and trying to figure out the path, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's a sort of learning from your mistakes. I mean, I think I'm on about 50 of these episodes, and had a lot of different conversations with a lot of people, and I'll at the end, so I don't want to spoil it. I'll ask you one last question at the end. Sure. And a lot of people have kind of said a lot of different things, but yeah, they often are talking about that ability to learn from your mistakes and fail and learn from it and kind of move on, and that continuous sort of forward momentum, whether it's 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, it's still kind of forward momentum, right? And keep it going. So interesting. So tell us a little bit about, so you've obviously had a number of successful organizations. You now run Level 5 mentors. Tell us a little bit about, what does that encompass? So if I'm an entrepreneur, we work, we look to work with you. Like what is Level 5 mentors, and how do you help entrepreneurs?
Yeah. So about 18 years ago, I got into the fitness space.
Right.
After private equity, and I started off working with a lot of my colleagues from the private equity space.
Okay.
Because they didn't live very healthy lives, and they were always asking me, "How is it that you stay in shape and healthy?" So similar to ours, and for me, it's just a priority. But what was interesting was that as that fitness business grew into what it ended up being, which was a really successful business with hundreds of members, and what was interesting is that the people that I started with are the people that related to me because of me being an entrepreneur. They were entrepreneurs,
right?
Or business leaders, executives, etc.
Right.
And 18 years later, the members in my fitness business still looked a lot like that. And so along the way, because we were all very relatable to one another, by accident, I would say, I ended up spending a lot of time with my fitness clients, helping them on their business.
So it became more of a, not just fitness mentor, but an actual business mentor, right?
That's right. So I could often be found in the last 10 years in my office with a client coming to me and saying, "Hey, I've got a question about X on their business."
Right.
And what I found was that I really loved it. And anytime you really love something, you're usually pretty good at it.
Right.
And so I found myself to be really good at seeing things and helping them clear away the noise and get to where they could get out of their own way and then make progress in their business.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, I mean, I know maybe can't share, or maybe can, but are there any sort of things that, stories that stick out in your head where you were able to, kind of advise someone and they were, became were able to implement something? Who are some of the, the star clients maybe that you were able to work with?
Yeah.
Any stories of that kind of?
don't know if it would be fair to share names and that kind of
No?
stuff.
Okay.
Um,
How about industries? We'll call them John or Jane Doe in a specific industry.
yeah, I mean the fitness industry in
It's okay.
particular. You know, I have a client who's in the education space within fitness, and we started working together pretty informally. I listened a lot, asked a lot of questions, and realized that they were missing a large opportunity with people who own fitness companies,
Right.
and they were educating a lot of coaches, but they were missing the boat on educating owners.
The facilities or
Yeah,
okay.
and so within a very short period of time, we had created an education platform specific for owners in the fitness field. We mapped out what the first year would look like. We priced it. We did all the work. We figured out how we were going to get it in front of potential clients.
Right.
And that business now, within the first year, was doing almost $1 million just in that one education piece.
Wow.
And it is growing 10 times every year. So that company will be, within 5 years, it'll be $100 million company.
Wow. Interesting. Cool. So I'm gonna we'll kind of being that you live in Calgary and Vancouver, or I guess it's not really Vancouver. It's just the other side of the mountains. Would you
Yep.
be a Flames fan or a Canucks fan? Are you or a hockey fan? I'm assuming you got to be a hockey fan somewhat.
Yeah. This will shock you. I'm actually a Leafs fan.
Oh, okay. There you go. Well, I'm in Toronto, so it's shocking. I'm more of an Oilers fan because I grew up in the '80s with the Messier, Gretzky, cup winning days into sort of the early '90s. So,
Yeah.
and
I
then
spent a lot of time living in Toronto. I went to a lot of games. Uh, you know, and for whatever reason, I stuck with them, even though they'll never win the cup.
it's funny that what was I read a really funny joke. It was it's sort of, I mean, it's dark with COVID and stuff like that, but it had to do with like the Leafs are they're leaving early, or anyways, they basically left the bubble early, but so they'll be the first one, but whatever. So yeah, Leaf fans, I think, I don't really want to get into a Leaf conversation. They have the talent. They should do a lot better than they do. I don't know what it is. I honestly don't watch enough of it to be able to kind of pull it apart and see, what the problems are, whether it's lack of grit or what it is. But they just never seem to be able to pull it together. Although I remember as a kid, sort of the Sundin, sort of those days, but they had, with like Tucker and some of those guys, right?
Domi.
Gary Roberts,
Yeah,
Domi, like they were pretty tough out back then. I think they went, at least second or third round, but
Justin, I'll tell you what I think it is.
Yeah.
They've never had it hard.
Well, from an ownership or from a player or all of the above?
From a fan base, they have a ravenous.
That's what I mean. Like who does that affect though? That's more the owners. I don't think the players. You think they feel that they feel they're gonna be loved regardless, or
their paychecks seem to be okay?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, you could say that about most of the players, but do you think that I mean, this almost is like a business thing, because do you think that having that kind of, certainty breeds sort of like lackadaisical, or there's no sort of urgency?
Yeah, you can't buy a ticket to the game.
But yeah, it's sold out. I mean, you can't even, season tickets are like 100-year waiting list. I don't know what exactly it is, but something ridiculous.
And that's all corporate money for the most part. And the ownership isn't motivated to do anything different. Yeah.
Well, they're technically owned by, I don't know if they still are, but like the teachers' pension, and so it's purely financial. Like how many dollars in to get max dollars out, and if winning isn't part of the max dollars out equation, it sort of gets thrown by the wayside, right? It's a little different from like one owner team where the owner's like, hey, we're going to throw money at this and go win championships, right?
Yeah, I don't think that the ownership is really a sports-minded ownership,
Right.
from a sense of we got to win the cup.
Right.
Um,
Do you think that'll last forever though? Like I think now with obviously the Raptors won, that I think I would argue, they had a tough go this year, and it's kind of sucked what's happened, but I think with their run they almost and they're the same ownership, so you can't really compare the two, but they've probably usurped Leafs, if you will, from and maybe even hockey from a national pedestal. Like which one? I would think hockey's still much higher because you've got teams across the country, but I think the Raptors are probably right there neck and neck with the Leafs, especially considering they have the whole country behind them versus the Leafs are very regional. So I don't know.
So I think that's got a lot to do with geography and where the sport of basketball really resides,
Right.
And the upside potential of having a championship team.
Right. And the demographics, it definitely attracts a whole new fan base, right? So having those long runs and championships are going to obviously bring in, the fan base for all of them. I think now you've got, it was Bell and Rogers own sort of a lot of it, and there's sort of joint partnerships there. Interesting. Cool. Well, do you want to touch on any other topics? We got sports, we got business. They're very intertwined, I think. They kind of relate to one another, especially as an entrepreneur. It's very lonely as an entrepreneur for sure. Trying to make it in a world of competitors.
Yeah, I think that, just on that note, Justin, that you're right. Like being an entrepreneur can be a lonely existence, mostly because we're kind of crazy. We're not relatable.
I didn't say it, but I always say it about me for sure. Yes, exactly. Yes. Oh,
we're not
kind of cut out.
exactly relatable to the majority of people.
Right.
And what I would say is, as an entrepreneur, seek out mentors, seek out other entrepreneurs, get involved in groups of entrepreneurs.
Right.
Like if find a relatable place for you.
Right.
It's amazing what you'll learn in that space. You'll be amazed with the type of energy you get back.
Right.
We've all as entrepreneurs gone to conferences and maybe you have been part of a business coaching group or something.
Right.
But when you get together, the amount of energy that starts to come about, not because of the topic that you're covering, but because you go, man, these guys all sound a lot like me.
You can relate a lot more. So people are sort of on that same wavelength, right?
Yeah.
Because we do come across as crazy to our friends and family and people they come across every day, right? So, we're a little outlandish. So here, I'll tie into that. Appreciate, Ken. Thank you very much for joining me. But I'll end it here sort of usually with the one question, one word. If you could go back and talk to a younger Ken and give one word or one piece of advice, what would that be?
So it's going to be 2 words.
It's so fun. Yeah, you piece of advice, 2 words, 1 word, can be a sentence, whatever. Yeah,
don't be afraid to be vulnerable.
Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Interesting. So okay, I can get it. So maybe what are your thoughts behind that? Like, what does that mean in your words?
It goes again to being a lonely entrepreneur and not being relatable. But if you're not willing to be vulnerable,
right,
share, then the likelihood of others joining your cause
Right.
is very low.
So you need to open up sort of to expose what you are so people can kind of connect at maybe a deeper level.
Yeah.
I think it's part of it. So they can see who you are and kind of gravitate towards your thoughts and beliefs. And if they believe in it, great. If not, I won't say fuck them, but yeah.
We've all had that experience where someone going through a hard time, but you didn't know it.
Right.
But you knew something was up, and then they finally confide in you, and they share their vulnerable moment with you. And the first reaction that you want to have is say, it's okay.
Right.
I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I want to help. Right. And so, oftentimes we're so focused on where we're going and what we're doing and all the work we're doing that we forget that. And if we want people to come along for the ride, we've got to give them a reason to do it.
And you got to bring them in.
You got to allow them the opportunity to share how you feel.
Yeah.
And it's way more powerful than you think.
Builds that deeper, like I think I just said that, but like a deeper connection, right? Because businesses are, superficial. People deal with people they like, brands they love, kind of thing is one of the things we say. But they feel that emotional tie, and if you can open up your vulnerability, and they kind of feel that connection to you.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. No, I agree 100%.
I'll give you an example. There was a time every morning where you would start. I would run a fitness class, and I started off every morning with a question of the day for the class, and they would answer. And it was close to the end of the year, and we were talking about goals for next year and so on. And I asked them what their goals were, and then finally someone said, "Okay, coach, what's your goal?"
Right.
And I said, "My goal is to have 50 more members by whatever date."
Right.
And someone came to me afterwards, after class ended, and they said, "Ken, the business seems to be doing really well. Do you really need 50 more people?" I said, "Yeah, we do." And I didn't change anything of what I did, but within the next 90 days, we had 50 more people.
Okay, so that's more of like the speak it, believe it, like that sort of, what do you call that? I'm terrible with words, but where you not visualize, but you kind of put it out into the universe, and it kind of comes back. There's a term for that.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Reciprocity. I don't know what it. Anyways, but yeah, something along those lines. Anyone watching, you're thinking of the word, we can't think of it, but you know what I'm talking about. But that's sort of where you put it out into the universe and kind of materializes, right? Interesting. So do you think that you telling people that, do you think that let people into your feelings, that you felt like, hey, you know what, our group isn't quite where I want it to be? Do you think that maybe spurred people on to kind of go maybe bring their friends? Like how do you think that tied into sort of, opening up to them?
I think the way that it was presented to them was that we actually did need that.
Right.
And,
okay.
I wasn't asking. I was saying that, this is what I'm working on. This is what I feel we need. And I think it came as a surprise to them, because they're in a very busy class.
Right.
There's people around, coming and going, lots of things happening. And they wouldn't have thought that we needed any more. And so because I've been so supportive of them and their endeavors and goals, they wanted to support me. And by me saying and being vulnerable to say, we need this, and sharing that with them, they took it on as their own cause.
Own object, or their own goals to, cause. Yeah, cause is a good word. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So it's that reciprocity, it's that opening up, being vulnerable, letting the world know that, hey, we need, for example, I mean, when this is actually aired, it'll be past the day. We're in a round right now raising money, sort of just launched our platform that allows people to raise money, and we're doing a kind of beta test. So I'll throw it in the universe. Hopefully we close the 100K that we're raising right now. So but yeah, so that's kind of out there, and that'll help us grow. We're
Sure.
bringing on a whole team of people. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's definitely, times where you need to let people know, like, hey, this is what we're doing. We need your, kind of continued support in the cause to create this platform, right?
Yeah.
In our
There's
case, right?
there's a couple of things, Justin, that are super important about growing a brand in a business. One
Yeah.
is be relentless about telling your story.
Right.
And I'll give you an example. Where did Apple Computer start?
Well, I guess the story is in a garage somewhere, or
Right.
something along those.
How do you know that? They're a $2 trillion company. How do you relate it to a garage?
Well, I mean, obviously that was sort of the story of him and his buddy in a garage, right? Tinkering with computers.
They have told that story relentlessly. Even to this very day, there's hints of it every time they do a town hall.
Right.
Every time they announce new products, there's always a hint of the two Steves in Steve's parents' garage in Cupertino, California.
Yeah.
And by telling that story, it keeps the company relatable to multiple generations, multiple levels of consumer, multiple levels of age category.
Yeah.
I'd encourage everyone, if you've started a business and you're in the midst of a business and you're trying to scale a business, make sure you're constantly telling your story. And the other is pair that story with a cause. And so the cause might be for backers is that you're trying to give access to capital in a much more efficient and understandable manner.
Right.
That's the purpose of the business. What's the cause? Why are you doing it? What are you trying to solve? And what do you want people to relate to so that they become part of that cause?
So I was a crazy entrepreneur. I started a 3-on-3 professional hockey league. So trying to sort of look at the NHL's overtime. It's called the 3HL, and I was trying to figure out how to fund the teams. And I came across the concept of sort of a socially funded or supported organization. The Green Bay Packers was actually the story. So they've got 300,000 plus shareholders. So I thought, hey, that'd be cool if I could have each city, owning the franchise, right? So London, the people from London would own the London team. The Toronto team would own, the people would own the Toronto team. The community would own it. So that was kind of the inception of Backers, was figuring out how to do that. Came across the regulatory, sort of rules, and there was no one facilitating it. So I thought, hey, if I build the platform, I can actually now go back out and fund my own venture. So it's sort of like, as an entrepreneur, I wanted to find a way to fund. It didn't exist. So I, saw an opportunity and created a platform that would help me, and obviously in turn can help any entrepreneur that's looking for, access to capital and a way to kind of take their vision to a reality, right? That's kind of our, so that's our story. Crazy entrepreneur trying to fund it, couldn't get it done, decided to build his own platform to make it happen. And now I've opened it up to others.
But you're solving a complexity, right?
Right.
And you're taking that complexity that no one wants to go through to try to figure out how to get crowdfunded.
Right.
And there's other platforms out there that do crowdfunding, but it sounds to me like yours is significantly unique.
Yeah.
And what you're really saying to me, I think, is that you are doing this to reduce the complexity, but ultimately help the entrepreneur who's looking to raise capital for an idea, which means you're really trying to get more ideas into the marketplace and grow that side.
Of course. And so I use the analogy, who's the greatest hockey player to ever live, right? And most would say Gretzky, and it all kind of leads back to hockey. It's funny. Yeah. We're Canadian, right? So anyways, but who's the greatest hockey player to ever live? People would say Gretzky, Lemieux, depending on your age, maybe, or Howe, or whoever, right? Or you go even further back, Rocket Richard or something like that, right? But the answer is no one knows because that person, there's so many people in the world. The person likely never played hockey because it's too expensive. You have to pretty much have been Canadian or, Northern European or, sort of like Finnish, Dutch, or whatever, right? Whatever you call it, Scandinavian or American. And you have to have, wealthy parents to put you through, exorbitant fees. Whereas, some kid in, Africa or Asia who could have been the best hockey player never actually played hockey, right? And that's the analogy we use for, ideas and businesses and entrepreneurs. The greatest idea for whatever industry or the greatest entrepreneur in whatever, industry never got an opportunity to actually have their idea or their business flourish because they were, basically stopped with, funding or sort of access or opportunity. And that's kind of where we see what we're doing is we're now creating that opportunity for everyone. Literally one of the taglines we've played around with a few. Private is the new public is sort of the most recent one, but one of them used to be, investing in opportunity, right? So it's literally like creating opportunities for everyone to kind of, see if they can get their idea to kind of the masses.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a different level of incubation. It's an everybody level.
Yeah, exactly, right? If you've got, and we can go through, we use things like natural selection as kind of our process where, if you can't persevere through the process, you're probably not going to make it in business. So there's sort of that, natural selection. Talk about incubator. We started a tech incubator back at the beginning of September. We've just changed the name as of yesterday because we're crazy. I thought of it, and I'm all about sort of the same brand. It's called an Incubacker. So we've got it's not just tech, but it's a full incubator for backers called our Incubacker. Again, just playing stupid on words, but the idea is that, we can take somebody, and I'd love to discuss how we can maybe bring you in as a coach for some of these organizations. Our idea is to really provide, the full, A to Z kind of support for that entrepreneur through the entire journey, whether it's, the development of the product. So actual, like the tech side, whether it's the processes and go-to-market strategies and the marketing and the mindset and all those different things, and getting sort of the branding and all that, everything to do with marketing. And then all the way to sort of the platform that we've built, the actual funding, investor onboarding tool, right? So it's kind of a full spectrum, and we would bring in people like yourselves and different, entities to kind of be a part of that as almost, we're going to build out kind of a marketplace where, there's the ability for them to engage with experts along the way and sort of along the process. So that's kind of, again, we built the end product. Now we're kind of figuring out how to make it seamless, because a lot of people start and never get to the end because of the lack of, kind of framework or access to opportunities that aren't there right now in a consolidated place.
Yeah. Well, listen, I think
I never tell my story on this, but yeah, go ahead.
I think it sounds great, and I think there's some follow-on conversation that we could have. I'm in the midst of building out a SaaS platform right now.
Okay.
That brings teams together virtually, and
okay. Like management teams kind of thing.
Companies that have teams.
Yeah. So the teams in each company kind of coming together.
Yeah, that are now sort of very distributed because of pandemic and so on.
So within a company, so like you've got the different people within a company. Okay, I see.
Yeah. So
yeah,
you would have basically this co-work space, virtual co-work space that is yours. It's private, has a bunch of features that are really unique.
Okay.
And you also have this ability to come out of that space, like you would walk out your front door, into a community of other
organizations,
teams, organizations, and have an opportunity to talk to experts in marketing and mentors, and all these things.
It's interesting. We should talk about that. That's kind of, I see there's probably some synergies there as well.
Yeah, we should talk about it.
Perfect.
But look, I mean, your audience is, I assume, is a group of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
That are working really hard to build their business and find whatever it is their reason for building their, or having this original idea to build a business. And I would say that, I'll leave you with this, is that you should be looking for 4 different things. You should have a freedom of time, which means you get to do work when you want. Probably why you wanted to be an entrepreneur in the first place. Freedom of money, which means you've developed something that gives you enough money to be able to live the lifestyle that you envision yourself living. That's part of your goal. Freedom of relationship, which means you get to choose who you want to work with.
Right.
And finally, freedom of purpose, which means you get to choose why you're doing what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And if you're missing one of those things, make sure that you sit down and find out if this is really what you want to be doing.
So that's freedom of time,
money,
freedom of money,
relationship,
freedom of relationships, and freedom of purpose.
Right. And there's one last one that sort of circles all of it.
Right.
Health. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself.
Right.
Without taking care of yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, none of those things are going to work.
Yeah, health is wealth, as they say.
That's right. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Ken, I really appreciate you joining me here, and stay safe in Calgary. Hopefully it doesn't snow. We'll end on another weather joke. Hopefully it doesn't snow today, but I appreciate. Yeah, we should definitely talk soon. Yeah. And we'll connect on LinkedIn. Everyone else, thank you again for watching. This is powered by Backers. Justin Fox, Ken Andrukow. Ken, enjoy your day.
Yep. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thanks again. See you. Talk soon.
OMG, baby, tell 'em.